What to do, U.S. history students? I'm going to go through today. This is September 17th and 18th at home assignment. So what we're going to try to do is teach you one of the skills. So we've got a few different skills that we've been going through so far. The first of which, well, I guess there was more that it's not just first, but with generally the historical thinking skills of change, continuity, causation, consequence, significance, and perspective is like the first thing. Then we've also been working on in class with the murder of Dave Carley, origin, purpose, and content, so how we analyze sources. And now the last thing is contextualization, which is how do we understand the broader scenario of history. So our learning intention here, we're not really going to get to the American Revolution part of this yet, but the big thing I would like you to be able to do by the end of this is establish historical context by comparing the perspectives of three different groups. So we'll get to that a little bit later, but what we're going to really just try to focus on right now is historical context and what that means to apply context to a situation. This did come up at least today, which is the 16th, in the murder of Dave Carley, and it probably will tomorrow for group 2 as well. But like thinking about the broader context of what was going on at that time is like an important thing for us to know. So anyway, sorry, just checking things. So here's a couple things we have. We'll do contextualization, which is establishing historical context. We'll talk about the 4 parts, or what I like to call the contextual framework that we'll be using. Oh, sorry, this is for something else. We'll also do some examples of contextualization that aren't necessarily from history, but are for more like pop culture movies. Movie trailers are a good thing that establish context. You can watch any movie trailer and kind of see context in them. I'm going to give you one from The Proposal from 2009. Romantic comedies are really good for context because usually the problem or the conflict is dependent upon some kind of contextual issue that occurs. Okay. So again, in history, you have a special set of skills that you have. So you got to be able to source documents or historical sources and be able to question them and come to conclusions about them. Contextualization is a big one, corroborating sources, and then those thinking skills we talked about last time. So today we're going to really focus on contextualization. So looking at how to establish historical context. So one thing you do is, if you'd like to do this with your group, it's a little more exciting, is you can stop the video right now and look at these 6 pictures and try to determine what are these pictures trying to show you. And this is a good example of context because each of these little pictures is kind of like a little itty-bitty historical event that occurs, and then the way to understand it better is to broaden it out and kind of have more context of the situation. So the context of the general situation of things that are going on. So I encourage you, take some time. It might be a little bit of fun activity for you to just talk a little bit about what is happening, what is in those pictures. So here they are zoomed out. So now that you have more context, it's a little bit easier to see what you have. You've got a tomato, or a tomato, depending on who you are. You've got a cow, some palm trees, a nice kitty cat, Renaissance High School where you are right now, and a guy that ate a whole bunch of hot dogs. So the big picture, the way we like to think about it, is called historical context. So when we're studying historical events, historical time periods, or even like something as small as the microcosm of your life, we want to try to think about what is the context, what is the big picture that we're looking at. So what does it mean? One other way to think about it is, how do you set the scene of the time period that you're looking at? So when you're thinking about an event like the Salem witch trials or the Civil War or the Battle of Waterloo or the bombing of Pearl Harbor, like what is the bigger picture, setting the scene, as it were? So to help us understand the things we learn, you need to know kind of what historical context means. So if you think about like the start of a movie or the start of a movie trailer, you can kind of think about it that way. So here are the things that kind of occurred or would occur when understanding historical context. So if you think about the moods, the attitudes, the conditions that exist at a certain time period. So like if you think about today, understanding what is happening to you today is really dependent on the context. What's happening with your family, what's happening in America, like thinking about pandemics, being in Idaho regionally, there's a lot of political conflicts going on right now. So things like that. So the situation, what's happening at the time that sheds some light on that effect. And it gives it a little bit more meaning to understand why somebody did something, or why an event happened, or why it's significant in the broader spectrum of kind of what we're looking at. So something like, we got these two quotes that are from various historical references, or sorry, historical events. So like, Sally hid her hands behind her back and crossed her fingers before she answered. And then, my daughter will be heading for California shortly after she marries. So depending on the context of when those quotes are being said, they can mean very different things. For example, the one on the left, you might be thinking about a parent yelling at a kid, or a student in a class trying to answer a question, but it's actually from the Salem witch trials. So hiding hands behind the back, crossing fingers, tell a lie before they answer something. You might be thinking, if you're thinking historically on the right side, thinking about like westward migration, manifest destiny, those kinds of things, when you're looking at context and big picture things. So historical context, or the contextual framework that we look at, has 4 things. So knowing these 4 things can really help you put things in a historical context when someone asks, like, contextualize this for me. Tell me a little bit about what I need to know. I like to think about it like at the beginning of a Star Wars movie, they give you the screen crawl, where they give you like what's happening so that you know kind of where you fit within the story of Star Wars at any given episode. You know, going to a movie, if you went to see Avengers Endgame with somebody that hadn't seen Infinity War, without making them watch it or summarizing the entire plot, like, how do you set the stage for where things are beginning at the beginning of Avengers Endgame, or a Harry Potter movie or book or something like that? Anyway, sorry, Mrs. Davis put this on here. I was just marveling at it. So 4 things. First, you need the time period. So given the time period, 1700s, 1800s, 1850s, 1900s, beginning of the 21st century, what does that kind of mean if you're in that time period right now? The key people. So who are the people or the groups you can think of? It doesn't need to be like a singular person or small group of people. It could be large groups of people. It could be political parties. It could be economic groups. It could be workers in management. It could be philosophers. So the key people that are involved during this time. The key conflicts. So what are the things that are really causing problems in society, or causing people to try to progress and move on to new things and find better things? So key conflicts. And then this one's a little bit harder to find. Like, what is the mood of society? Like, what are the vibes that they have that they're giving off at that time? Is it a time where like people are really looking for a change? Is it a time where people are really trying to pull and maintain a continuity? Is it a time where there's a whole lot of different perspectives on what's happening and they're clashing? Is it a time where different countries are in competition with each other? That could be an issue as well. So the mood of society in general. Is it like right now we have kind of economic issues in our society? We're not doing as well as we were before. How is that impacting the historical context that we're living in? So those 4 things, time period, key people, key conflicts, and mood of society, are going to help you understand the historical context and the events within them a little bit better. I like to use this one. So if I were to say to you, here's a historical example. You got 3 males with ceremonial headdress stand half naked with letters carved into their chests amongst a crowd of 40,000 people in sub-zero weather. What are some examples of information we would need to know to contextualize this situation? What is going to make this meaningful and accurate? So maybe pause the video and take some time to think about that. And you can talk to your group members as well, or wait for them to get in the chat. It might be a little asynchronous. So what do you think is going on, or what's some more information that we need to understand this, to broaden our understandings? Because your mind is probably going to a very specific event. You probably have an image of it in your mind, and it's probably like looking like a historical event. So what would it actually look like, or what other information would you need? So here's what was actually happening. So this is a Go Pack Go crowd. So big cheeseheads, Green Bay Packer fans, generally will stand in crowds of 40,000 people, sub-zero weather, not carved into their chest. I guess I was amping it up a little bit, but ceremonial headdress with the cheese head. But you can think of a lot of different ways, depending on the context, that this would be different. This person looks like they're having an exciting time. This is like foreshadowing the mask wearing, but this is probably from like 2002. They've got Favre signs, so. So once again, we've got time period, key people, key conflicts, mood of society. I have this clip here I should have already, if I'm doing my job, posted it in your group like feed or in the assignments feed as well. So yeah, so you should have that pretty much with the material. So you can go look at that, watch that clip. It's a movie trailer for a movie called The Proposal, which is from like 2009. Ryan Reynolds, Sandra Bullock, classic movie. You should check it out if you haven't, but not right now. So watch that and see if you can come up with those 4 things that can help you understand the movie a little bit better. Okay, so kind of went through context. You had a couple different examples of how to develop context. I'd like you to talk to each other and just make sure you all feel good about answering these questions. So 1 is basic definitional. Tell me the 4 parts of historical context. Give an example maybe from a time period that you could use. Maybe find another movie trailer. One fun thing to do is if you've ever seen the movie Mrs. Doubtfire, you can watch the regular Mrs. Doubtfire trailer, and then they also have one where they make Mrs. Doubtfire just by changing the context and some contextual clues, they change it into what looks like a horror movie. So it's kind of interesting to like look at. You can also watch Friends. You can watch Ross without a laugh track. He kind of sounds like a psychopath, so you can check that out as well. You can watch a video of The Shining where they do the Seinfeld music, which makes it seem like a comedy. Anyway, there's various things where they change the context and change things. So talk about these questions for a couple minutes, and then you can move on to the next part where I'm going to post those those video clips. So here's what I'd like you to turn in kind of, but it's going to be a little more informal. So I just want you kind of based off of one of these video clips from these links to do the context. So write me a short little synopsis or summary of the context, which means don't give me something like really, really super long, just maybe like a paragraph of like what are the time period, the key people, the key conflicts, the mood of society that's being demonstrated in the video of the events. And you have 3 different ones. You can all watch the same one if you want to. You can just do different ones and then talk about them. But I picked 3 events that we don't necessarily cover this term, but can help provide context for future events that we talk about. So video 1 is about the Columbian Exchange or Christopher Columbus and the effects of his arrival in the quote-unquote New World or in North America, South America technically, and then or Central America, West Indies. Video 2 is about the Atlantic slave trade, the development of the slave trade in what will eventually become the American colonies. And then video 3 is called The Black Legend, which deals with American Indians and perspectives on their relationships with the Spaniards, or the Spanish explorers that came to North and South America first before the British. So pick one of those, or you can even do all of them if you really want to, you got some extra time, you want to kind of get some more historical events. So what I'm looking for, again, is just a short little synopsis in your group chat. You can do it all together, or you can do it separately, depending on the video. You can split up. It doesn't matter. It's just I just want to make sure you're practicing the skill of context, because we're not going to do it directly, like go over it again in class, but it's something I'm going to expect that you're able to do relatively well. Okay, so we're going to develop that as we go. All right, so once you're done with that, you're good to go, and that's your at-home assignment. So thank you.